Hello, everyone. This is Ultrix Millennium, aka Jesse Lang, is here with my next voice interview, and this time it's going to be with a non-binary voice actor. Pray for me, because I don't want to misgender them. Here with me today is Corina Boettger. How are you doing, Corina?
Hi. Um, it's been a stressful time for a lot of people right now.
Mhm.
So
I don't blame you. So yeah, like I said up at the top, everybody is like Corina is of course non-binary, and I'm going to try my best to not misgender them throughout the entirety of the interview. Again, pray
thank
for me.
you.
So yeah, I guess start this interview as an icebreaker. How did you get into acting for the most part? Were there multiple different factors, or was it entirely your choice?
I remember being a kid and basically I went up to my parents and I told them I knew what I wanted to be when I grew up. I was 5 years old when this happened because I had just watched The Mask. And I was like, I want to
Oh,
be
I
Jim
love that
Carrey.
movie.
Yes, very good movie. Also, 5-year-olds probably shouldn't be watching it,
No.
but I did, and I loved Jim Carrey, and I just really wanted to be him. That was like the whole idea behind it, and my mom brought me to um a community theater. Started out there, and then I was like, no, I really do want to do this for the rest of my life. And so my mom was really instrumental on finding actual auditions for professional work. And I got my first professional job when I was 8 years old.
It's, and I guess to kind of pile on the whole aspect of kids that young shouldn't watch movies like that. Back when Blockbuster was still a thing, um, I don't know what was up in my mind, but I rented like the first Nightmare on Elm Street movie and Freddy vs. Jason, and I watched both movies back to back.
Yeah.
And I was 10 years old when I watched those movies, and I didn't jump. I didn't get scared. Nothing.
Wow. See, I'm scared of all scary movies. I think it's because my mom let me also watch The Fly when I was really young, and I've been
Ah,
terrorized ever since.
yeah, that'll do it.
Yep.
Okay, let's get back over here. So this is a bit of another personal question. It's like, and I mentioned as I mentioned in our emails together, I too have autism. I was diagnosed with it very young, and it's often been a struggle in certain situations where I don't understand a situation and I try to wrap my brain around it and empathize with the folks being angry about that situation. And sometimes it works, sometimes it blows up in my face. And so I guess what I'm trying to ask is, have you ever found yourself in a similar situation, and what do you do to disengage from it and relax?
Every single day. um I'm very lucky to have a really good support system with the friends that I do have that understand me and know me well enough. Um, Also, I've found that most of my friends are either ADHD or autistic or both. So that also helps with miss. I like they've actually done a study on this, and they found that like autistic people don't necessarily like they don't misinterpret anything between each other, and then neurotypical people, they don't misinterpret things, well, like they don't misinterpret things as much, I should say, because it's not that we don't, it's just as much. And then the minute that you put them both in the same group, that's when a lot of misinterpretations happen. So I find that like it's not that I've purposely done this. I think autistic people just, or neurodivergent people in general, find each other because we tend to easily get along with each other because it's easier for us to empathize with somebody that's going through the same exact process. And it's not that autistic people don't have empathy, we experience empathy differently.
Yeah, and there's
um
and there was a
so
and there was a thing there was a
but
situation where I was
yeah,
trying to.
because
Sorry.
neurotypical people, oh sorry,
Yeah, I was gonna
I'm
say
sorry.
there was a situation that I was in that's a similar thing as what you were trying to explain, but I'm probably going to mention it after the interview because it's a little personal.
Hmm.
Yeah, what were you going to say?
What I was going to say is that, like, I feel like because neurotypical people and neurodiverse people experience empathy differently, that's why neurotypical people say, well, you don't have empathy. And it's like, no, we do. We feel that differently. That's a
Mm-hmm.
completely different feeling for us. And different, we have a different thought process about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's also been situations where I've just been angry at something where I just have to like step away from the computer, go off to my little table and work on something. And I've actually brought a few examples of some of the things I do actually work on to try and alleviate my stress. Like I've gotten very adept at painting the eyes on Funko Pops.
Oh,
Yeah, that's what my first ever
cute.
Funko Pop eyes painting of a Sparkatito. I call her the lead cat
Yay.
because it just kind of
Yeah.
reminds me of that. And then I also do
Yep.
stuff like building model kits, and I have an insane backlog of model kits. And this is one of the ones I finished building recently.
Oh, cool. I like his sword. That's a Gundam, right?
This is actually a
Or is
model
it? Is
kit.
it a transformer or is it?
This is actually a model kit of one of the
Oh,
Power Rangers Megazords. This is the Japanese name is Max Victor Robo Sigma, or in Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue, the Life Force Megazord. It is a model kit of six
I
individual
watched
Zords,
that
and you have
season.
to
That's why I
build
didn't recognize
yeah, it's a model
it.
kit of six individual Zords, and you have to put each Zord together and then combine it together to form this.
That's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, and I have an insane backlog. It's not even funny. Back to back to questions here. Let's see. I've had to do a lot of research regarding your work in the industry, and while you did have a few on-camera roles, I did notice that your earliest voice acting role was an NPC named Mary from Fantasy Star Online 2. Despite her being an NPC, what was your thought process in the direction of your voice in that character?
Um, Mostly just make sure that um that I bring across her honesty. She's a really honest person, and also is not afraid of, like, showing her emotions either, which is a really, like, that's like a really cherished thing, I guess. Like, it's always nice.
Yeah, I was like, I'm also a very honest person too. I can't lie to save my ass. So I also have a couple of questions from my friends on Discord, and because they also submit me questions if I can't figure something out. A couple of them are from my buddy KR36. The first one is, what was it like voicing Mizuki and Bibi in these Somnium Files games?
That was so cool because when I got the email saying, "Hey, the Somnium Files 2 is happening. You're gonna be in it, of course." Mizuki, Masked Woman, and BB, and I was like, "Who the heck are they?" I guess I'm just like, because a lot of the time in video games, you're very rarely only one person. You
Mm-hmm.
usually are, but like, unless you are voicing the lead, um, I mean, heck, even if you're voicing the lead, if they have time, they will also have you voice some other characters. And so I was thinking, oh, I probably have time to voice these other characters. But then, now here's the thing about being a voice actor in video games. Most of the time, they don't give you the script in advance. And this is to protect NDA and whatnot. And this time, they actually gave me the script in advance. And I was like, what? That's weird. And then reading through it, I was like, oh my God, they're clouds. Ah, that's cool. And when I went in to record, the biggest thing was that they were like, we wanted Mizuki to, obviously just older version of Mizuki. Okay, you don't have to do that much, like, much to make a 12-year-old sound a little bit like an 18-year-old. They're like, luckily, feminine presenting or feminine people, like in general, they don't really go through the same voice change as masculine people do. You know, when it comes to puberty, and the differences of male and female going through puberty. So it's more of just like the way she talked and the way she presented herself as this 18-year-old. And then with BB slash the masked woman, it was, we wanted them to sound the same but different. And I was like, oh, shoot, that's really hard. What we decided was, we, like, you know, BB is older, and we were like, we're gonna make her more calm, cool, and collected, and that will come across as older. Whereas Mizuki, being an 18-year-old, she's not in full control of her emotions all the time as much. Yeah, that was like the hardest part, actually. Making them sound the same but still different.
Very nice. But yeah, my second question from KR36 was, how was your experience voicing Somali in Somali and the Forest Spirit? And I've actually watched that anime.
I loved being Somali in Somali and the Forest Spirit. I really enjoy. So I remember this because the studio owner flat out told Crunchyroll, I'm the perfect person for this role. And so getting that, I mean, I did still go through an audition process, but apparently I was like the first person that they thought of to begin with. And I remember being like, huh, that's weird. Why would I be the first person to be brought in for this role? And the studio owner was like, you sound like a realistic child, and you can also cry on cue. And I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. And I remember because there was one day where we actually had representatives from Crunchyroll physically there in the recording room with us. And this was before the Crunchyroll offices were in Texas. So they were actually in LA at this point. And I remember this because Susie Goldish was the one that was directing this session. And I had this big monologue where, you know, Somali ends up crying about, you know, not being around father anymore at one point. And we go through a take, and Susie was like, that's really good. You just need to speed it up through this one part because it's dubbing. We have to match lip flaps and stuff. And crying on cue and trying to match lip flaps is really, really hard.
I can imagine.
Yeah, and so I'm crying like still because, like, you know, it when you you're really feeling, you know, if you're really in to cry on cue, you're really feeling those emotions in the moment. And so I'm like trying to wipe tears away, and Suji Goldish is giving me the direction, and I go, okay, yeah, just give me a second, because I'm not crying at the beginning of the line. I'm crying midway through. And so I had to completely like center myself back down to be able to have the right starting point. And I hear over Susie saying, take your time, as she like has her finger on the button, which means that I can hear her. And one of the Crunchyroll reps goes, are they okay? And I was like, that was the biggest compliment in my whole career. Yes.
Nice. Very nice.
Also, Christina V is a character in Smelly and the Forest Spirit, and Christina texted me at one point saying, you sound really good at as Somali, and I didn't know she was in the show yet when that happened, and I was like, oh, thank you, Christina, I love you. I love Christina so much.
Yeah, I've met Christina at Wizard World / Fan Expo quite a few years ago, and she's very nice. I also remember her because she was Hyperforce Black on the Power Rangers Hyperforce D&D show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to interview her one day.
I also remember on Smalley and the Forest Spirit being jealous because Kyle Hebert, as the Forest Spirit, he didn't have any lip flaps to match, which is insanely easier. And I was like,
Yeah. You
so
lucky
jealous of
son
you
of a
right
gun.
now. In anime or in dubbing in general, it is a gift when you are given a character that just doesn't have lip flaps or a character with a mask on almost the entire time. Those are the best characters.
Nice. But yeah. So before we get to GI, short for Genshin Impact, obviously, and everything involving SAG, I would like to ask you about your roles of TK, Palamon, Togemon, and Lilymon in the Digimon Adventure 2020 dub. How did that dub happen? I remember that dub shadow dropping in the Microsoft Store whole things when it dropped.
I mean, to be honest, I don't know how it happened. Toei is in charge of all of that, and once we record, it's hands off at that point. So I just remember being really excited because TK was my favorite character when I was a kid. And so playing him was really freaking cool. And then also to be one of the Digidestined and one of the Digimon for one of the Digidestined was like a huge honor.
Yeah, that was actually really cool. I haven't seen all of the Adventure 2020 dub because I just have not been able to what's the right word? I haven't been able to sit down and just binge it all.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just hard for me to sit down and watch something these days. But I would like to check out the Adventure 2020 dub, and especially with TK, I was like, don't take them up because they'll stick some Rockymon on your ass.
Yeah.
All right. So here comes the section of the interview that I know some of my viewers may not like, but screw it, we're all learning today. So sit your desk, we're talking Genshin Impact and SAG-AFTRA. So, Genshin Impact, huge game. Everyone knows this. How did you find out about the game, and what drew you to voicing Paimon?
I mean, we don't necessarily get to choose who we audition for. Most of the time we don't have any idea what we're auditioning for. We only get more information as we book. And with non-union, technically, legally non-union work out here does not even have to tell you the name of the game. Now, usually they do because, so, fun fact, usually when SAG-AFTRA negotiates for better working conditions, the non-union contracts also try to match the better working conditions that SAG-AFTRA has in their contract. So back in 2017 was the last video game strike that we had before the current one that we're in right now. And one of the things that we were able to negotiate was the ability to actually know the name of the project that we are on, like the proper name, not the code name that they keep it under. And that way, actors would be more well-informed on the video games that they were working on. There are stories from people like Jen Hale, and I think Jen Hale was like the biggest one that came out that they had no idea. But I know that there was other stories about how one voice actress had just had a baby and was dealing with postpartum depression. She had no idea what video game she was working on. She had no idea of the content because, again, they don't necessarily give us the scripts in advance, so we can't read them. She had no idea anything going in, only to walk into the studio and they get to a part where her character has to literally eat children. She just had a baby and was dealing with postpartum depression. And had she had that information beforehand, she would have said no to the role. And as an actor, yes, technically you can in the booth say I'm not doing this, but imagine this. That's like going in, doing half the work and saying, oh, never mind, bye, which looks really unprofessional. It puts the actor in a really uncomfortable spot. So when I auditioned for Paimon, I had no idea what I was auditioning for, except for the fact that it was a character named Paimon. There was also a character, I believe it was Amber. It was either Amber or Xiangling. I don't remember. And it was also the female traveler. Those are the three that I auditioned for, but I didn't necessarily know the company it was for. I didn't know the name of the game, not until I got the notification that, hey, they want you to come in for a callback. Well, heck, I don't even think I knew the name of the game when I went in for the callback. If I remember correctly, they told me the name of the game when I booked the role, which is standard ever since that strike that we had in 2017, where we, again, even though Genshin Impact is a non-union game, as I said, when SAG negotiates for better working conditions, usually the non-union contracts start to also try to match them as well. So yeah. And so yeah, I knew when I booked Genshin that it was called Genshin, but I had no idea really what it was, and I didn't know really anything about HoYoverse or MiHoYo at the time. And that's kind of standard for heck, I didn't even know it was going to be recording for this long. I had no idea it was going to be an ongoing recording process. I don't think a lot of us did. And it wasn't until after almost half a year of recording that they were like, all right, you're done. And I assumed done with the entire game. And I was like, wait, we didn't even save the lead character's sister. Whatever, I'm sure it'll make sense. But, it's not no skin on my nose. I did the job, whatever. And then like a few months later, it called in and I was told it was for pickups. But then I noticed it was for a session that was for 4 hours. And I was like, pickups for 4 hours? That's usually not a thing. And only to find out that my director was like, okay, we did some pickups and now we're moving on to the next, I think it was 2.0 or something. And I was like, wait, what do you mean 2.0? And he's like, oh yeah, it's the next part of the game. And I was like, how long are we going to be recording this game? And at the time I was told, oh, probably about 5 years. And I was like, what? That's crazy. Yeah. So they really don't give you information that they don't have to give you until you as an actor, you are on a need to know basis, which again is why in 2017 it was really important that we at least knew what projects we were working on before we accepted the role. And if there was any sensitive subjects, that we would be warned about that in advance. Yeah.
I'm always an outsider looking at voice actors talking about this kind of thing on social media, and it's very rare to actually talk with somebody about the sort of thing. Yeah, here's another big one, and it's kind of a bit of a thing for me. I personally have not played Genshin Impact, but I want to play the game one day. I'll be saying after everything gets sorted out. But I've enjoyed seeing the videos I have seen, and I have a few comfort characters in the game, like Corina, Kaching, a couple of others. But Ganyu is my personal favorite spirit animal, especially her one voice line about her troubles that goes, I don't understand why people insist on going all out to try and prove how their existence is more valuable than everyone else's. To exist in the first place is a beautiful thing. That's enough, isn't it? So I guess the point of that long intro is what is your personal favorite comfort character and or spirit animal in Genshin Impact?
Timmy.
Yeah.
He's just really upset that you're scaring away his birds. I have birds. I would hate that too.
Yeah. Yeah, I just love Ganyu, and I love Jennifer's portrayal of her, and I'd love to try and interview her one day.
She's a very good person, and a very close friend of mine. I don't know what I would do without her.
Yeah, I actually did send an email to her asking for an interview, but I haven't gotten a response back yet.
She's really busy right now. She's like casting and directing. So
okay, and I guess before we get to the other part about SAG, I actually skipped over a question, which sucks because I normally don't do that. The other question I had: what drew you to work on the anime Erased in voicing the character Aya Nakanishi?
again, I don't get to necessarily choose what I audition for. So like there's nothing drawing me to audition except for the fact that the casting director sends my agent the audition. The agent then says, "Hey, do this audition," so I do it.
I gotcha.
You know, there's I think people think that all of acting is like what it is for the one percenters that are making millions of dollars off of Marvel movies, which, yeah, they are the people that get scripts in advance and they get to, you know, pick and choose what roles they are. Everyone else that is not that, which is the majority of actors, do not have that luxury. We don't get to choose what we audition for. We don't get to choose what roles come our way. We don't get to, like, I mean, we can turn down roles, but it's not like we can be like that character. I want to be that character. We don't get to do that. So it's really confused. I think it's just because, you know, most people listen to the top 1%, so they assume if it's like that for them, it must be like that for every other actor, and that's not the case. It's kind of like, I don't know. It's you know, they're getting paid millions of dollars, meaning meanwhile most voice actors like me are on food stamps. That's like a huge difference there. Also, voice actors make way less than on camera, which is a shame because especially in video games now make more than movies do. But being a lead character in a movie pays much better, and also you get residuals. And for video games, you do technically get a pay bonus depending on the popularity of the game. If it is union, this does not apply to non-union. You do not get a pay bonus in non-union at all. But if it's a union game, you do get a pay bump depending on how good the game does. But it is definitely not the same as residuals. I believe it was, oh gosh, what's the actor for Winter Soldier? Him.
Sebastian Stan.
Sebastian Stan. He actually just came forward and said that if it wasn't for the residuals from Hot Tub Time Machine, he would have not survived the years before he finally booked Winter Soldier, because he didn't book anything during that time. And honestly, I think that depending on the success of a video game, the actors and the game devs, both of them, should get proper residuals.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, most of the money goes to the CEOs of those companies.
Yeah, not a big fan of those guys. Yeah, here comes the other part of the video where I'm going to get an education, and I thought I was done with school. So yeah, the current video game strife with SAG and video game companies. Can you give us a rundown of what voice actors are asking for from these companies?
Basically, from what I understand, and again, I highly suggest actually looking on Kyle McCarley's Blue Sky account, because he's a very well-respected member of the union. He is much more accurate than I am about it.
Yeah, I've been retweeting his stuff from time to time.
Yeah, he's a fantastic person, but what we are asking for is actual enforceable AI protections. And also for mocap actors or performance capture actors to be considered actual actors, not just data. And that's a huge thing, because motion capture and performance capture actors have been mistreated for a really long time. Some of them not even credited for a lot of their work. And they're doing stunts and should be compensated fairly. And also, the big thing there, the difference between just data and also being considered an actor, is the fact that with the fear, this is also a way to protect motion capture and performance capture artists from AI. Because if they are considered just data, then that means anyone can just continue to use the work that they have done over and over and over again and not pay them for their work.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I also saw, and I'm gonna butcher this guy's last name. I apologize in advance. I recently saw Joe Zelia's video. Zija. I saw his video regarding the situation with Genshin and Mihoyo because I wanted to get input directly from the actors instead of a random YouTuber. So if you actually saw that video, what are your thoughts on it?
I did see that video. I thought it was very informative, and it's really unfortunate that people took a lot of his words and misconstrued it or took it out of context. Especially when he was like, he said he was going to call what the Genshin actors were doing as a collective refusal, like withholding of work refusal. Which that is the definition of a strike. The only reason that I'm going to call it that was to not confuse it with the SAG strike because they are separate.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because Genshin Impact is a non-union game and always has been. Therefore, SAG doesn't have any jurisdiction over Genshin Impact. But the actors themselves in Genshin Impact can still strike against that that game. Or Hoyo in general, as also we've seen people from ZZZ have also been getting replaced because they are also striking against Hoyo. Because we want to, most of us at least, want to unionize. Some of us are okay with just having AI protections in the contract with Hoyo. And that's that's a bit, sure. But most of us want this game to be on a union contract and have been begging for them to put it on a union contract for a really long time.
Yeah, and I've also seen a lot of reactions from a bunch of different social media places, like obviously Twitter. I am not calling it X because Elon's stupid. Along with a few people in Blue Sky that everybody's hoping that you guys get replaced by AI voice actors, and I'm like, oh my freaking god.
And that's why we're stopping working for them because we don't want to be replaced by AI.
Yeah, and I've seen an example of AI voice dubbing, and I could barely even stomach a minute of that crap. The anime Super Cube. I've seen a minute of a clip from that anime, and oh my god, the voice work in that thing was, oh my god, that was
I refuse
so
to
bad.
Click on it, so I refuse to watch or click on it. I'm not going to give my attention to that.
Trust me, it's bad.
I'm sure.
All right, to effectively put a pin on this discussion for obviously later, do you hope that video game companies, not just MiHoYo, will agree to a deal with voice actors sometime in the future, and that the voice actors will get protections against AI as well? I mean, we kind of sort of got that via Hollywood for the most part.
I absolutely hope that will happen. That we will get AI protections. Otherwise, we won't have an industry here in 5 years. And although we can sit there and say that AI isn't good now, eventually it will get better. But the thing is that can never replace the soul of a person. I've been asked many times that if somebody said, what if you were actually compensated for your voice of AI? I'd still say no. And the reason why is because that's not just I might have gotten paid for it, but there's also the sound engineer, the director, the studio, studios themselves out here don't want AI because that would render them all useless. That would completely bankrupt our entire industry. And then anybody else who wants to be a voice actor, you're not needed anymore. They do not need you. They will not hire you. They have AI now. You will not be used ever. So if you had dreams of being a voice actor, if AI is going to be a thing, you will not have that anymore. And but what if you're sick, or what if you're not what if you're unavailable? Okay, hire another actor. How dare I make the choice to make money and take that opportunity from another actor who could have voice matched me? And a lot of beginning voice actors get jobs like get their start because that happened. I know that. So there have been plenty of times that I have voiced other roles because the actor was just not available. So the actor said, please hire somebody else. I'm not available at this time. Right? They actually relinquished the role. And I, of course, then got my start like into voice acting because I was able to voice match that person. You as an actor should not be so selfish that you would take that opportunity away from somebody else when you yourself also probably got in the industry that way. And how dare you do that for money? And I say that as a person who's on food stamps.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not willing to do that. And I cannot, in good conscience, call myself an actor if I am not physically doing the acting. Yeah, they took my voice and they used AI on it, but I'm not doing the acting. Therefore, it's not me. It's not me actually making choices in the booth. It's not, I don't get to improv anymore. I don't get to put my insight. Now, I don't think people realize how integral the idea of collaboration is when it comes to acting, and how much of a part of that is the actor themselves and their input. And I don't mean that the actor is changing the character. That's not the case. The actor is simply putting in their input to the director and to the client to basically say, I think it would be done better this way. The client and the director can still refuse and say, no, I don't like that or whatever. Okay, fine. But still having that input has actually saved a lot of situations where I was like, are you sure you want to word it like that? Because it also means this thing that is definitely probably a act of intimate moments with a partner and could be misconstrued as such if worded in such a way. And then the client be like, oh, you're right. We need to rewrite that. I have done that many a time because
they pretty much had that oh shit moment.
Yeah, and it happens a lot more than people think. Because, you know, when you are right, it's not the writer's fault because the writers are on a lot of crunch time. So they don't have time to, like, really, like, the writers will get underpaid and they don't have enough time to really, like, do what they need to do to make sure that that's not happening. And heck, even if they did have the time, mistakes happen. And it's important to acknowledge those mistakes when we are in the booth. And so, yeah, there have been plenty of times where I was like, what this sentence means, it also means this, and I don't think you're trying to say that. And then being like, oh, you're right, it does also mean that. Let's rewrite it right now. You know, having that saves companies and also saves them money.
Very nice. But yeah, there's one last question overall, and this is a bit of a niche thing for me. What was it like providing additional voices for the English dub for the show Ultraman Blazar?
I don't even think I remember recording it. So you have to understand that, especially when it's like random incidental characters or NPCs or anything like that, I am much more likely to forget that I ever did it. And that's only especially depending on when I recorded it. If it was in a week where I happened to have like a whole bunch of recordings that week, I definitely forgot what I did.
Okay, fair enough.
And this happens a lot because so in acting, we have this thing where we audition and forget. Because if we try to really overthink what we did in that audition or whatever, it can actually hinder our performance. It can also be a really big blow to our self-esteem. And in an industry where you are most likely going to hear a lot of no's before you hear a yes. It's really important that you get
Mhm.
in the habit of auditioning and forget. The problem is that that also applies to me when I go to the booth, because I will go to the booth and I will record, and then the minute I'm out, I forget.
Huh.
I like to
I can
not bring my
understand that.
work home with me.
I hear you.
Yeah. I don't necessarily forget everything. There's obviously some things that I'm like, oh, that was funny, and I remember that little nugget in there, but
Mhm.
that's only when like that happens. So yeah, especially when I'm recording for the incidentals or anything like that, I tend to forget.
Right, I hear you.
Hold on, my dog has something she shouldn't have. You shouldn't have that. No. Okay, we're good.
That's fine. I have a little wiener dog at home myself. But yeah, I think that's all the questions I have for you. Hope a little bit of a dog cameo there.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's all the questions I have for you. So thank you so very much for agreeing to do this interview with me, Corina.
you're welcome.
All right, so as a bit of a sign off, what can we expect from you in the future?
We can expect probably a lot more hospital visits if my disease keeps going the way it's going right
Okay, well, hope you feel better.
now. Thank you.
All right, I guess in closing, this has been Jesse, aka Celtic Williams, and good night to the Later.